Viewing or listening to this podcast confirms acceptance of the disclaimer visible on your screen or found at authorscott.com/podcast. Welcome to the Regaining Health and Humanity podcast. I'm Dr. Scott Johnson, your guide on this journey to natural well-being. Here we explore evidence-based insights, revolutionary breakthroughs, and powerful health strategies that not only inform, but inspire change. Together, we'll uncover the mysteries of human existence and unlock the secrets to thriving. This podcast is more than just knowledge. It's your catalyst for unleashing extraordinary potential. Get ready. Your journey to boundless health and happiness starts now. Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Regaining Health and Humanity podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Scott Johnson, and as always, I'm so glad you're listening today. Most of you probably realize that optimum well-being is only achieved through a holistic approach. Anything that affects your physical health is also going to affect your mental, emotional, spiritual health, and vice versa. So today, we're going to have a discussion about the 5 dimensions of health with Dr. Christine Sauer. Dr. Sauer grew up in Germany, raised 2 sons, and became a physician. She has vast experience that includes naturopathy, allergies, leg vein diseases, and dermatology. Due to personal physical, followed by mental illness, she had to give up and sell her medical practice in Germany. Following a family tragedy, she moved with her sons to Canada, where she endured a deep health crisis. After partially recovering, she started actively searching for the newest and best nutrition, lifestyle, and medical information, and with help from other health professionals, became healthy again. She then took multiple courses and started her own brain and mental health coaching business to share her knowledge and experience and her unique view on conventional, alternative, functional, and integrative medicine. Dr. Christine is a prolific writer, best-selling author, course creator, radio and podcast host, engaging TEDx speaker, and dedicated team leader, researcher, educator, and teacher. So it is an honor to have her on the show. Welcome, Dr. Sauer.
Thanks, Scott. Just call me Christine. I'm happy to talk with others about myself. I use the doctor as a reputation booster, but I'm just a normal human being. And I go by what Marshall Goldsmith said, a leadership coach. She said, we all need help. And it's true.
Yeah, that is true. And that's funny that you say you're just a normal human being, because when I interact with my followers and fans, I say, I'm a normal human being. I've just spent an extraordinary amount of time researching a specific topic. And so I guess that's something that you and I share, is we're both normal human beings that have studied topics pretty extensively. I'm excited to jump into the topic and glean from the experience and knowledge that you have. First, will you provide an overview of the 5 dimensions of health and well-being and explain how they interconnect to create a holistic sense of wellness?
Absolutely. I'd be very happy to say that. Now, I see that like a pentagon, or better a circle, because we all are complete human beings, but we are comprised out of different parts. Now, physical health obviously is important. What we put in our bodies, nutrition, food, the cooking habits, vitamins, it's very important. And then the mental aspects, if we have childhood trauma, emotional issues, PTSD, how we think, do we have negative thought patterns? Oh, I can't do this. Well, if you think you can't, you can't. That's well known. But then there's, of course, the social connections. As humans, we are herd animals. We are meant to be in a group. And humans want to be part of something, a larger group. The social contingent is very important. And then without a spiritual connection, and I'm not necessarily tying that to a specific religion. I personally grew up in Christianity and reconnected with that. But I respect every spiritual connection that is really felt and gives you meaning, purpose, and a reason to get up in the morning and do something, because a life without a spiritual connection, in my box, is not whole. You're just existing, not thriving. And then the fifth dimension that's often forgotten about, but it's so important, is the financial dimension.
Mm.
And I don't mean by that that you want to be a millionaire, but it is important to have enough money to get out of the rut, to be able to afford maybe even more than traditional healthcare, to be able to afford the nutrition that gives you the vibrant energy and the life that you want to live, and the means to get the educational resources, even that Wi-Fi. But if you're stuck in the rut and you think, oh, there's nothing out there for me, I'm just laying in bed and watching TV, sorry, you will get nowhere fast. And maybe then you need to get the chemical band-aid that we call medications.
Hmm. I'm glad you brought up some of those that I think are lesser known as far as the connection. Humans definitely are social beings, like you said. And there is some compelling research and some great data showing that you have to have healthy connections in order to be healthy in various aspects of your life. And it's also interesting when you mention the financial aspect, because something that it makes it very difficult. If you don't have that financial foundation, it makes it very difficult to help all of the rest of those dimensions of your wellness, because you're very limited. Um, how can individuals balance these 5 dimensions of health to support optimal brain and mental health?
I think that is a very difficult thing to achieve for most humans. It certainly was for me. And everybody starts at some point, and then it's a path. And I made a video that's one of my BLU talks, the 7 steps to climb the mountain of life. And you probably have heard of the famous quote of Lao Tzu, a Chinese philosopher: a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. There's 2 issues with that. Number one, if you are not first deciding on a direction that's worthwhile going to, you might go backwards and your journey ends up to be 2,000 miles, or you end up running around in circles your whole life. Or if you don't continue taking steps in your chosen direction, but you err from your path, you get distracted, you know, then it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big issue. Many people these days have distractions, are terrible, very sad.
Right. There are a lot of distractions in life now that try and divert your attention from maybe the goals and the things that you should be focusing on and the things that matter most. But it is a challenge to try and keep that focus where you want it and need it to be. So I want to talk about the connection between physical health, because I said in the beginning, anything that affects your physical is going to affect other aspects of your wellness, and opposite is true. Anything that affects those other aspects is going to affect your physical health as well. So how do you explain to your clients and other people how physical health influences brain function and mental health?
That is a very good question. And the truth is that we are not a system comprised of organs that are in different drawers. Like you go from this specialty to this specialty. We are one human being. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, you all have heard of the brain-gut connection. There's others, the
Yes.
kidney, brain, the skin, gut, and the skin microbiome. Our microbiome is just getting in the limelight, and it's very important. And I've studied gut health for quite a while. And for myself, I know that when I was severely obese, 325 pounds, and felt miserably depressed and was eating all day long sugar, candy, chocolate, just to soothe myself, because sugar
Mm-hmm.
stimulates an area in the brain, the pleasure area, the same area as cocaine and heroin.
Yes.
And when I teach teenagers Dr. Amen's courses, and when I do that, Dr. Amen always says there's been studies. Rats have the choice between sugar water and water laced with heroin. They choose sugar water over heroin. That's how addictive food can be. So there's a true food addiction. Emotional eating is nothing else but a malfunction of certain receptors in the brain. And that's why diets fail. They fail, period. I've tried diets and all they do is weight regain. And that's why I focus my brain and mental health practice more and more on helping people overcome that emotional eating and not gaining the weight back, because I kept my weight off for 17 years. So I'm an example how to do it. I know how to do it, and I know how to help others to do it. And it's complicated. I'm not saying it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said in the beginning, we all need help. So I want to encourage you. There's many smart people like you, maybe me too, and many nice and kind people. If you combine them, and there's books, good. I know you wrote a plethora of books. They are great books, by the way. I looked at
Oh,
them
thank
all.
you.
Very nice. I wrote a few books too. So educate yourself. And then choose. Maybe you'll find a really good coach. Don't go with one of those stupid weight loss programs that tell you, oh, just go on that diet and you'll lose weight and keep it off. That won't work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I do havening techniques, because it's the only technique so far proven by science to have the weight not regained in over half of the people that lose it, which regular diets have a 98% failure rate. So a
Right.
50% failure rate is a great improvement.
It's interesting that you mentioned the rat study of choosing cocaine, because that's something most researchers are familiar with and have looked at. I say it's interesting because just yesterday I was listening to another podcast and they were talking about this exact study. And I still haven't had a chance to go and look at this reference and see if this is true. But the podcast said that somebody duplicated that study, but this time gave the rodents active things to do, a gym, things to run around in, things to play on, things to interact with, and found that they didn't choose the cocaine as much because of that, because they were able to be active, which that makes total sense to me, because that activity releases endorphins and it makes you feel better. And so you maybe don't need to go and indulge in that cocaine because you're getting that stimulation you need, or that good, happy feelings that come with exercise. So I found that fascinating.
It is very fascinating, all the research that's going on that topic, how to connect brain health with physical health and mental health, because brain health is equal to mental health. If you cannot improve the physical functioning of your body, and exercise is an important part of it. And I would say for rats, having the ability to exercise and entertain themselves is similar to people having a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, rats don't have much of a prefrontal cortex, obviously. Overthink things a lot.
Yeah.
And then we don't know what we want. And then we watch TV and there's the advertising. Oh, you want this? Oh, try this.
Mm-hmm.
And we try this for 5 minutes, maybe for a month. We buy this supplement and it's resting in your medicine cabinet.
I think that's a perfect segue kind of into the next question that I wanted to ask, because there are foundational things that really need to be established in somebody's health and well-being if they want to be healthy. And I think two of those things are nutrition and exercise. So how do nutrition and exercise help maintain a healthy brain?
They are extremely important because nutrition has been so perverted by the modern, I say, pharmaceutical complex, if I may say,
Mm-hmm. Right.
by big corporate interests. And it's all about how can I make the most money and have the longest shelf life. It's not about, is my food helping the person to nourish their soul, their body, their mind? They don't care. They want to make money. And I get it. Corporations have to make money. We all have to have money in this world to survive. But on the other hand, there has to be a balance.
Right.
And many people do not know anymore how to choose their foods. And that's the main reason I wrote my first book, Eating for Vibrant Health and Explosive Energy. It's a very concise
Mm-hmm.
little book, very helpful, small enough to take in the grocery store, because people need to know why they want to choose maybe lard from a real pig that runs out on the lawn over vegetable oils, or why they
Mm-hmm.
want to choose eggs from a farmer that has the chickens run outside over factory farmed chicken that has a miserable life. So I think those are important aspects. Exercise is extremely important. Many of my clients that are overweight struggle with motivation. And that's where the purpose comes in, because I think neither nutrition or exercise works when you don't have the proper motivation and the proper purpose, why you want to live. Why do you want to get fit? Why do you want to lose weight? Why do you want to really? It's not about losing 10 pounds, 20 pounds. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
What matters is, hey, I want to be able to see my grandkids and get out on the floor with them and play with them and be the grandma, the role model that I really always wanted to be. And I'm sorry, you cannot do that properly when you are 400 or 500 pounds and cannot get out of bed. I feel
Mm-hmm.
really bad for people that are in that position. It's
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah, it's kind of getting past the superficial aspect of weight loss, right? Because so many people, they just want to meet a beauty standard that's been established by society. And so that's the reason that they want to lose weight. But they fail to really think like you are. If I'm overweight or obese, how is it going to limit my quality of life? What am I not going to be able to participate in that I want to because of that? And so it's really important that people kind of shift their mindset and their thinking about body weight in general, and why it's important to maintain a healthy body weight, because we have a better quality of life. We can live longer, but more importantly, those years are going to be filled with the activities that we want to participate in.
I couldn't agree more. And let me be a little provocative.
Okay.
Losing weight is easy. It's very easy to lose 50 pounds. Have weight loss surgery, lose 150 pounds. It's
Mm-hmm.
not that hard. You don't have to work hard at it. It costs you money, it costs some time, it is a little painful. Yeah, but people can do it. Lots of people do it. The issue starts after you arrived at your target weight. And that's when all the standard weight loss programs fail miserably. And after 2 years, 98% gain everything back and then
Mm-hmm.
some.
Right.
And I have the same experience. And then when I had weight loss surgery, I decided it won't happen to me. And it didn't, because I knew what to do. And now I'm giving back. That's the purpose for the rest of my life.
Yeah. A lot of people will look at me and say, well, you can't understand what it's like to be overweight, because they just see what I've looked like for the last, couple decades now. But
Right.
the reality is, as a young man, I was involved in 4 different sports. And so I was highly active and always just burning calories. So I could eat whatever I wanted and it didn't really affect me. But once I got out of high school and I was starting to get into other things, and I'm not involved in those activities anymore, I started to gain weight to the point that, from a BMI perspective, in my early 20s, I was just below obese. And so I definitely can empathize with that. And, I got that weight off, and I've been able to maintain my healthy weight now for a couple of decades, like I said. And so I can empathize with people who are going through that struggle, and then what needs to be done after the weight loss occurs, like you said, in the maintenance stage to keep our bodies healthy.
I just wanted to add, it's really one of the areas in our society where discrimination is still more or less accepted. When I
Mm-hmm.
was really fat, say 325 pounds, I'll tell you a little story that some readers, some listeners may empathize with. I was flying in an airplane and I hardly fit in that seat. And I couldn't close my seatbelt because I was too big. So I had to poke the stewardess and tell her I need a seatbelt extender, which was
Mm-hmm.
bad enough to do. It took courage to do that. And you know what she did? She traumatized me actually at that point. She hollered through the airplane, "The lady needs a seatbelt extender." She
Mm-hmm.
didn't think what she was doing at the time, but it was highly inappropriate.
I totally agree. I don't think we should be fat shaming people. I don't think we should belittle people. We shouldn't put people down. We shouldn't attack people who are struggling with that. That's not what we should be doing. But we also should be helping inform people that there are risks associated
Yes.
with being overweight and obese, and there is a trend in society right now where they want to ignore those risks and tell people that it's okay. There are no risks. Just continue to live your life with a lot of excess weight and you're going to be fine. And so we definitely have to strike that balance.
It's a hard balance between fat shaming, that is not
Mm-hmm.
good, and fat promoting, which is also not good.
Right.
And really, what you're doing is excellent health promoting. That's the answer. And yes,
Mm-hmm.
there are solutions, but you need to work at it. You need to work at it for at least a year consistently, and then you can slack off some because it gets easier once you have achieved it.
Right. I want to talk a little bit more about cognitive health because there was an interesting poll, probably, it must have been about 10 years ago now that I saw this, that polled people who were in their more mature years and asked them whether they would prefer to live a long life and have cognitive deficits and lose their memories, or whether they would rather live a shorter life and maintain those cognitive abilities. And it was very strongly for shorter life and maintaining my cognitive abilities, which makes total sense. People who have seen a loved one suffer with dementia or Alzheimer's or memory loss and cognitive challenges, they know what it's like. I have experienced that with family members personally. And so it's, most of us are trying to think, how can we maintain our cognitive abilities throughout life? So what do you consider some effective strategies for maintaining and improving mental health and even your cognitive abilities? And how can these strategies be incorporated into daily routines?
You know, that's a really interesting and fascinating question. And I've given a few lectures on how to prevent Alzheimer's because I love the work that other researchers have done on that topic. Of course, Dale Bredesen is one of the top ones. And again, it comes down to the 5 dimensions of health and mental health. And because you need all of them, you need
Mm-hmm.
as much unprocessed foods as you can afford, as much organic biodynamic foods as you can afford. That's why in the blue zones, people live the longest. They have a clearly defined purpose. They have a clearly defined social group. They don't have to struggle with things like our poor teens have to struggle, gender identity and stuff like that. I think it's a very difficult struggle that our teenagers are facing, and the parents need to take the role to help them. Because as we know from brain studies by Dr. Amen, dementia starts 30, 40 years before you have symptoms in your brain. So now is the time to change your life, to get a purpose, get their nutrition right, start doing something of exercise, whether that's yoga, whether that's Tai Chi, I like Tai Chi, or the fusion of both, or do some exercise, whatever you like. It's really important to learn to like exercise. I used to
Mm-hmm.
hate it with a passion. I actually wrote a blog post, how the 7 steps how to learn to love exercise, even if you
Uh-huh.
hate it with a passion, because you can change your brain. You're not stuck with it. You can change your brain to make it better. And even if you have beginning memory lapses, you know, those senior moments that they talk about,
Mm-hmm.
and it is so important to train your brain. Because if you can train I can eat whatever I want and how much I want. People say, oh, how can you do that and not gain weight? I train my brain to want the things that I know are good for me.
Mm.
And that way I like this food. I like the vegetable soup. I like the goulash, and hopefully I can afford, and even if not, there's alternatives, the really good meat, the really good vegetables. But if not, you can thrive on regular food on a lower budget. And I think
Yeah.
it's really important that if you have the ducks in a row, as they say, you can do it on even conventional food. Not on a Twinkie diet. That won't work.
That's interesting that you talk about starting young to preserve your cognition, which is, I agree with you. That's something that more people need to focus on. I think one of the challenges with that is young people tend to say, I'm young, I'm healthy, I don't notice anything going on, and so I don't really need to. And it's not until they're older that they start to feel things creeping up on them that they go, oh, yeah, I probably should have been better when I was younger, which makes it a challenge because they just don't see immediate effects usually of eating that Twinkie or whatever their vice is in food. Brain it.
Yeah, just wanted to give you an example how people can test how foods affect their mental health and
Oh,
their
great.
mood.
Yeah.
If you eat, say, normally, and you love chocolate and sweets and candy and cake, and you eat it usually every day, and a high carb and of course a white bread diet, try not to do it for just a few days, and you will notice a markedly difference. And then after, say, 3 days to a week, doesn't have to be forever,
Mm-hmm.
eat a whole chocolate bar. And I
Ah.
guarantee you, you will not only feel really tired, but you might also get stomach problems.
Mm.
I've tried both, and it happens to me every time. If I eat more than a little bit of chocolate, I feel tired.
Mm.
So food is a drug in a way. It works similarly to a drug, just it has no negative side effects if you use it properly. And of course, you have to consider food sensitivities, allergies, and an allergologist. I know about that. And
Mm-hmm.
you can heal those too by restoring your gut flora. Not in every case, but very often.
It seems like in modern society, food sensitivities or even food allergies is on the rise. And it's a lot to do with the processed foods that we eat and the chemicals that are in them and the pesticides that are in non-organic foods, how they destroy gut health. They destroy your gut flora. They destroy the gut integrity. So you have leaky gut. And so there's a bunch of factors contributing to that, but it can be something that you can reverse and improve, definitely, like you said, if you have the right focus, the right help from a good health professional.
That reminds me, I made a little video just for fun years ago. I call it the barrel model of disease, because I see the disease, the symptomatic disease, like you have a barrel. Imagine a barrel that you have by birth, and the size of the barrel is determined by your genes.
Mm-hmm.
Now that barrel has a spout too, and the size of the spout, the drain, is also determined by your genes and epigenetic influences. And
Mm-hmm.
they can go generations back. Now then there comes the environment and rains into your barrel. And now the barrel fills up over time. If there's more rain, that is all the environmental influences that are unhelpful often, it fills the barrel. And at some point, the barrel overflows and you have a leak. And that is when you get symptomatic. You get memory problems. You get diagnosed with Alzheimer. And what does conventional medicine do? It mops up the spill. What do we need to do? We need to reduce the water that's dripping in your barrel
Right.
and maybe help unclog the spout.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what holistic practitioners do.
Yeah, getting to the root cause, right? We don't want to just put Band-Aids or on things, the symptoms we see. We actually want to get to the root cause. In the beginning, you talked about spirituality, and a lot of people probably look at that and go, I don't understand a connection there between my physical health or my mental or emotional health. So can you talk a little bit about how spiritual practices contribute to mental clarity and overall brain health?
That's a very interesting question, because for years I myself thought the same way. And I thought, oh, well, it's not really important. And I read a very interesting book about prayer and surgical incisions. They actually did a study. They had two groups of surgical patients that had the same surgery with the same incision. And one group of the patients received prayers for them without their knowledge. It was a
Mm-hmm.
double-blind study. The other group of patients didn't. And interestingly, the incisions for the group that did receive the prayer without their knowledge, they didn't even pray themselves, healed faster, about a day or two, compared with 8 or 9 for the other group. And when I read that, I said, there's something to it.
Right.
And so, having been born a Christian, I went back and read the Bible cover to cover.
Mm-hmm.
And I reconnected with that, and I got additional books about the mystical aspects of spirituality and the Bible that has that the monks explored in the Middle Ages and that we have lost. And the Mystic Christ is a really interesting book in that area. Then I went into comparative religions, and in my opinion, all world religions that have a positive aspect to them, and they all do, have the same goal: to connect us, to reconnect us with Source. Wayne Dyer
Mm-hmm.
wrote beautiful books about Source. He calls God Source. I choose to call it God. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter the name you choose. Some religions don't allow you to use a name. Fine. I respect them all. Choose one and try to reconnect with it. And any amount of reconnection to Source, even if it's not associated with a typical religion, you can have your own personal connection. I sometimes say we all have a little inner spiritual sanctum, a little golden shrine, and that should be encased in a very tight boundary. Nobody is allowed to touch it and hurt it. That's yours alone. That's where you have your spiritual connection with. And
Right.
everything around the boundaries that you set up in your walls in life, they're like layers of an onion. And you can open them or close them depending on how people interact with you in everyday life.
Well, I think that there's a social aspect to religion or spirituality in a way, because it connects you with other people who feel the same way, who have a similar belief and faith. So I want to kind of shift a little bit into the social aspect of our well-being and talk about the role social connections play in brain health, mental well-being, and even overall health. What would you say about that?
Well, as humans, we are so-called herd animals. We are more like gazelles. From the hormonal makeup, we are more like prey animals, not like lions who are predators. We are more the prey. So we have the tendency to feel easily scared, and we need connections in a hopefully caring community to thrive. And our brain is hardwired for that. When we connect deeply with another human being, ideally, the mother knows it with a newborn, oxytocin, the connection
Mm-hmm.
hormone in the brain, is released, and we feel the connection. It makes us feel good. We love it. And the same when you embrace your lover, or you embrace another human being, or when you do havening on yourself or to others, oxytocin is released and you
Mm-hmm.
feel the connection with self, with others, with universe. And there's again the holistic part, but we do need the social connection. Every human is part of a group automatically. We are born in a group. I happen to be born a woman. I happen to be born in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
I immigrated to Canada. And at first, I wasn't part of the group. And I still am not a part of the old folks that have always lived in Nova Scotia. And that's fine. But I have met wonderful people here that I was able to build a very deep connection. And after the death by suicide of my first husband, I remarried, and I'm now connected with another wonderful husband. No, he's not perfect. I haven't met the perfect person yet.
Right.
Sadly, I myself can say I'm not perfect. I tried to, it didn't work. So I settled to be not perfect, and it's fine. It's actually
Right.
easier. It's very relieving when you let that go of that need to be perfect, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, I think it was Vince Lombardi who said that we will strive for perfection, and on the way we'll find excellence. And that I like that quote, because none of us can be perfect, but we can be excellent. And so I love that we can work towards being as perfect as we can, but we'll settle for that excellence that we achieve.
Absolutely.
Today, this world is full of technology, and I think that can be a double-edged sword. That technology allows you and I to connect, even though we're separated by probably about 1,500 miles or so right now. It allows me to give lectures on health in Brazil and in India and in South Africa and all over the world. So that's a great thing. But it also can be one of those distractions that we talked about earlier, where people tend to get hyper-focused on their social media, and then they don't have those connections with people around them because their focus is entirely on a phone or a device. So how does technology affect our mental health and our brain function?
In a very big way. And it starts, of course, in childhood. And Dr. Amen has done the studies, I think in 2016 even, that children that have, say, before the age of 6, that have 1 hour of screen time a day on average, have about a 10 chance of being diagnosed as ADHD at age 6. For each hour of screen time per day, their likelihood increases by 10%. So 5 hours of screen time for small kids equals 50% likelihood of being diagnosed as ADHD, losing focus, and going down the rabbit hole of ADHD with medications and all the unhelpful areas that are often treated. Now, on the other hand, sometimes I'm very positive of screens, but not for children. I personally think children's TV watching should be severely limited by the parents, and they should not have their own phone until they're teenagers, at least, and only if the parents really can trust them.
Mm-hmm.
That would get rid of a lot of childhood mental health issues, and it would make the parents probably happier. Thankfully, our children are usually quite resilient. And if you just let them alone and let them play and give them tools, books, real books, and let them watch TV and video that you have chosen for them. And there's very wonderful educational TV shows for children that are educational. I don't know if you know of the Tuttle Twin books. I like them. They are very helpful. Stuff like that is extremely good. Dr. Amen's classes, of course, are good for teenagers. They help them find out, hey, I don't want to be a Facebook consumer for the rest of my life. I don't want to play violent video games all day. And when my children were teenagers, it was the time when just the video games came up. You know, there was SimCity 1 in the 80s and 90s. And they wanted video games, of course. So I went with them shopping and I said to them, okay, you have some allowance that you got from cleaning the house, because they didn't get an allowance automatically. They had to work for it. They had to do their chores. Each chore was assigned an amount of money. You know, you have to earn money even as a child. Don't let them just have everything. Very
Right.
bad. So I said, you have your allowance and you can do whatever you want with it. And yeah, you can buy that violent video game here. But if you buy SimCity, I pay half. So I sold them on constructive video games.
Right.
And of course, they wanted the SimCity because it didn't cost them much. And they were very happy and very successful being a mayor of the city and building a city online. And then they went into Sim Railroad and Sim Ants and whatever else. All good. They never played violent video games because I wouldn't support it. It would have cost them something valuable. I think that's an important aspect.
Yeah. When you talk about the social media and being a consumer, it made me just think that, I heard years ago, if something is being provided to you for free, you are the product.
Right.
And that really is what it is. Social media is provided to us free because we are the thing that's being sold. We're being sold to the advertisers who want to advertise their products to us, which is just another interesting way to think about social media.
It is very true. And I hate that because I do social media advertising. I get clients from Facebook ads, and it works because people are exactly that.
Mm-hmm. Last thing I want to talk about is mindfulness and meditation practices. Can you explain how these two practices can be useful for our mental health?
I love mindfulness and meditation. Mindfulness starts with paying attention to what you do right now. For example, right now I'm talking with you.
Mm-hmm.
I am not clicking on other tabs. I'm not even drinking my coffee that my husband provided for me. My phone is on silent and I'm focusing on our conversation. I'm
Right.
trying to be mindful. At the same time, I feel my body. I know my feet are on the floor. I can feel that. And when you listen to that, try to feel your body wherever you are. Can you feel your hands rubbing against each other? Can you feel your butt on the chair if you're sitting down? And whatever you feel, pay attention to it and notice it. Because mindfulness, as John Kabat-Zinn and others said, is starting with noticing what is instead of getting distracted. Just notice what is. So little
Mm-hmm.
things you notice, that's mindfulness. And mindfulness and meditation go together. Meditation is being in the now for longer periods. That's a training effect. And we know that it calms the brain, can help with anxiety, but only if you do it like Wayne Dyer says. Just imagine you're laying on the grass and your thoughts are like the clouds and they're just going away and you don't pay attention to them. You notice them and say, oh, yes, 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 tomorrow I have to go to the dentist and I won't like it. Bye. Oh, well, it's tomorrow. Let it go. And so on. You notice what you're thinking, but you let it go, just like the clouds go in the sunshine. That is an important aspect. For me personally, and for many people that have trouble sitting still for longer times, mindful movement is more helpful
Mm.
because it gives them something to focus on. And I think that's why havening works so well as a mindful movement and psychosensory technique. And that's why certain yoga techniques work very well. That's why Tai Chi is getting quite popular and all those movement integration practice with mindfulness that help you to focus on one aspect, like move only this finger. You notice how this finger feels when you move it. You can try it when you watch the video or you listen to the podcast. Move a finger and see how it feels. Can you feel the gnarling in your joint because you haven't moved the finger like that for a while? Stuff like that. And it makes you aware that there's many, many things in life that are going on and we can't control them. And it's good. It's okay. It's okay as it is. We are okay as it is. Imperfect, but okay.
I wonder if part of the challenge people maybe have with meditation and mindfulness is that it requires them to have some stillness in their mind. We don't like boredom. And in modern society, boredom is so associated with negativity that we get stuck in a grocery line. And even though it's only going to take a couple of minutes to stand in that grocery line, we've got to get our phone out and start doing something to prevent us from being bored for those 2 minutes. We can't be bored for 2 minutes. And so it's just something that we need to let our mind just be focused and be still and be aware and mindful of the things that are going on around.
I think that's a good point. But I also see that most people that I talk to, they have it's impossible for them to start with to quiet their mind in that way. So
Yeah.
that's why I say when you're in a grocery store, actually, what you can do, look at your neighbors. Look who's else is standing in the line. Strike up a conversation. Yeah, it's scary, but just watch what happens. Most people, when you smile at them, hey, how are you doing? They say,
Mm-hmm.
not too bad. And they say, isn't it boring to stay in this grocery line? As soon as you say it, you're no longer bored.
Yeah. You have
I'm
somebody to
never
connect
bored
with.
anymore because I choose not to be bored.
Mm-hmm.
And you cannot be bored if your mind is truly focused on nothing, because when you have nothing in your mind, you're not bored either. But the
Yeah.
problem with boredom comes when you're overwhelmed by the options and you can't choose. And that's actually stressful. So it's better
Mm-hmm.
to do something slow that you can control, like just rubbing your hands. It's more helpful than trying so hard to quiet your mind.
Well, Christine, it's been a pleasure talking to you and having this discussion. I think it's so important for everybody to be mindful of all of these aspects of their well-being and their health, and to put a little focus into each one. I like to talk about it in the aspect of a wheel. If we put all of these 5 things on a wheel and we focus too much on one area versus another, then what tends to happen is that wheel no longer is actually a wheel. We have something that's way out here and then something else that's too short, and so it won't rotate very good. You wouldn't want to drive down the road on a wheel that looked like that, or a tire that looked like that. And so it's so important that we put some emphasis on each area of these. It doesn't mean we have to do it all at once. We can focus on one area at a time and then slowly work our way around that wheel. But we do need to have some emphasis and focus on all aspects of our well-being if we want to have that optimum health, if we want to have a greater health span, if we want to have a higher quality of life throughout the years that we have on this globe. So thank you so much for being on today.
Thanks for having me, Scott. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for sharing your time with us today. I hope you've gained insights to elevate your health and life. For more transformative evidence-based wisdom, I invite you to explore my 20-plus books at authorscott.com/shop. Don't miss out on the chance to supercharge your health and guide others to a better life. Like, share, and subscribe to join the movement transforming lives. Here's to your journey toward boundless health and happiness.